This broadcast is part of a fictional program. The station and events depicted are not real. This audio is created for narrative and entertainment purposes only.
This is LWB 1713 AM last warning broadcast. If you can hear this transmission, conditions have already escalated beyond control. This is Daniel Vance. I'm a forecaster with the National Weather Service Office in Norman, Oklahoma, and I'm recording this on my own phone because I can't think of anything better to do with my hands. It's 4:11 in the morning. I want to start there with something true and small, because almost nothing else I'm about to say is going to sound true and such stuff. The wind has stopped, not died down, not gone calm before a storm. Stopped. Every anemometer in our network is reading zero, not near 00. A flat line on every gauge from here to the Gulf, and the lines came in one after another like dominoes about 40 minutes ago, and they have not moved since. I've been doing this for 19 years. Wind doesn't do this. There is always motion. Even on the stillest day you've ever stood in, the air is shifting somewhere. A tenth of a mile an hour, a breath. The atmosphere does not hold its breath. It can't. It's a fluid sitting on a spinning planet that's being heated unevenly by the sun. Stillness is not one of its options. And yet I walked outside 10 minutes ago. The flag on the pole out front is hanging straight down like it's painted on. The trees aren't moving, not the big branches, not the small ones, not a single leaf. I held my hand up and felt nothing. I lit a lighter. The flame stood up perfectly vertical and didn't waver, didn't lean, until I let go of the button. I keep waiting for something to move. Nothing is moving. I'm going to keep recording. I don't know who's going to hear this, but somebody should be writing it down. And right now, that somebody is me. The first thing you do is assume you're wrong. That's the job. You don't trust a single reading. A dead anemometer is the most boring explanation in the world. Ice, a bird's nest, a bad sensor, a frozen bearing. One station goes flat, you log it, you move on. So my first thought at 3:30 when our ASOS site at Will Rogers dropped to zero was equipment. Then Tulsa went flat, then Wichita Falls, then a mesonet site out by Altus that I personally helped calibrate 8 months ago, and that one I trust like I trust my own pulse. You don't get a coordinated equipment failure across 120 independent stations on different power grids, different manufacturers, different maintenance schedules, all reading the exact same impossible number in the same 40-minute window. That's not a malfunction. That's the thing the instruments are measuring, actually doing the thing. So then you assume it's the software. Some feed got corrupted. Some script is pushing zeros into the display. I pulled the raw data. I went under the hood, past the dashboard, into the actual sensor output. The cups on the anemometers, the little spinning cups, they report rotational speed. They are reporting that they are not rotating. The bearings are. I had a tech on the phone at Will Rogers, and he physically went out and flicked one with his finger, and it spun freely and then stopped and reported the spin, and then reported zero again. The instruments are working perfectly. The air is the problem. I want to be clear about what that means, because I've spent all night trying to find a version of this that isn't terrifying, and I can't. It means that across at least 4 states right now, the lower atmosphere is not moving horizontally at all. The pressure gradients that should be pushing it are still there on the map. The forces are present. The response is absent. It's like watching someone push on a door, and the door just refusing. I'm calling the regional center. Hang on. The regional center isn't picking up the way they should. I got it through eventually, but the voice on the other end was a guy named Reyes I've worked with for years, and Reyes does not get rattled. Reyes once talked me through a tornado outbreak with 3 confirmed wedges on the ground, like he was reading a grocery list. And just now Reyes said, "Vance, are you seeing zeros too?" 2. Not, "Are you seeing this?" 2. I asked him how wide. He didn't answer for a second. Then he said the calm wasn't regional. He said they were getting flatline reports propagating across the entire contiguous U.S. and that it wasn't spreading like weather spreads. It wasn't a front moving across the map at 50 miles an hour. It was switching on, region by region, but fast and faster than anything physical should move. Like someone walking through a house turning off fans one room at a time. I asked him about international data. He went quiet again, and that quiet told me more than anything he could have said. Europe's reporting it, he said. Asia reported it first, actually. Their mornings already happening. It started over the Pacific around. And then he stopped and corrected himself, which forecasters do. We correct ourselves constantly. It's a good habit. And he said, no, it didn't start anywhere. That's the thing. We can't find a point of origin. It's like it happened everywhere within about a 90-minute band, and we're just the last ones to notice. I've never heard Reyes correct himself out of fear before. He told me to keep my station logging and to keep my people calm. Then he said, Daniel, go look at the dew point. And he hung up. I didn't understand why he said it like that until I looked. The dew point is just the temperature at which the air becomes saturated and water starts to condense out of it. It's a basic, friendly number. It tells you how muggy it'll feel, whether you'll get fog, whether the grass will be wet. It is the least dramatic thing on the board. Our dew point is climbing. Not fast, half a degree maybe since I started recording. But it shouldn't be moving at all at 4 in the morning with the air this still. And it's moving in the wrong direction. And it's moving everywhere at once. Every station that's gone flat is also showing humidity creeping up. Here's what bothers me, and I want to say it carefully because I might be wrong, and I'd rather be wrong. When air doesn't move, it doesn't mix. When it doesn't mix, moisture that the ground gives off at night just sits there, right at the surface, piling up in the bottom layer with nowhere to go. Normally, even the faintest breeze stirs it, carries it up, spreads it thin. No breeze means the bottom of the atmosphere is going to keep getting wetter and heavier and more still, and there is no mechanism in front of it to stop. I keep using the word normally. Normally. I think I need to retire that word for a while. It's 4:44. The flag is still hanging straight down. I'm going to make coffee, wake up the rest of the staff who are sleeping in the break room, and try to figure out what we tell people when they wake up to a world that has stopped breathing. It's 6:50 now, and the sun is up, and I want to tell you that daylight made it better. Daylight is supposed to make things better. You get through the long part of the night, and the sky goes gray and then gold, and your brain says, okay, we survived. The normal world is coming back. The sky came back. The normal world did not. The first thing anybody who walked outside this morning noticed wasn't the stillness. It was the smell. The whole staff noticed it within a minute of each other. Everything outside smells like itself, but too much. The cut grass by the parking lot smells like a wall of cut grass. The asphalt smells like hot tar even though it's cool. Somebody's been running a diesel generator 3 blocks over, and you can smell it like it's parked on your chest. That's the no mixing thing again. Smells are just particles drifting on air currents. Take away the currents and everything an odor touches just stays where it's emitted, concentrating, layering. The world has turned into a room. Nobody's opened a window in, and it is so quiet. I never understood how much of the sound of being alive outdoors is wind, the hiss in the trees, the hum against your ears, the little ambient nothing noise you stop hearing because it's always there. It's gone. The silence has a pressure to it. Birds are calling, and you can hear individual birds from what has to be a half-mile away, sharp and isolated, no blur of distance to soften them. A coworker, Maria, came back inside from the parking lot, and she was rubbing her arms, and she said, it feels like being indoors. Outside feels like being indoors now. And that's exactly it. You know, we've all spent our whole lives outside, meaning open, outside means the air can get at you, and that's just not true anymore. The phones started ringing around 6, local emergency management, a hospital, 2 school districts asking if they should cancel, and not knowing why they'd cancel, just feeling like they should. A reporter, everybody asking the same question in different words. Well, what is it? And I'm the meteorologist. I'm supposed to know. I do not know. Let me tell you how weather forecast actually gets made, was because it matters for what I'm about to say. We don't guess. We don't look at the sky and feel it in our knees. We feed current conditions, temperature, pressure, humidity, and above all, wind, at hundreds of altitudes and locations, into physics models, enormous ones. Supercomputers running the actual equations of fluid motion forward in time. You tell the model what the atmosphere is doing right now, and it calculates what that motion becomes in an hour, a day, a week. The whole science rests on one assumption. The air moves. Every equation we use has wind in it. Velocity is the spine of the entire thing. And at 6:15 this morning, the global models started failing in a way I have never seen and never read about, and never heard an old-timer warn me about over a beer. They're not crashing. That would almost be comforting. A crash is a bug. What they're doing is running the math with wind speed set to 0 everywhere and producing results that are physically insane. Heat with nowhere to go, moisture stacking to impossible saturation, pressure differences that should explode into the motion, just sitting there in the output, refusing to resolve because the term that resolves them is gone. The model output looks like a still photograph of a system that should be a movie, and the model knows it's wrong. The error flags are screaming, but it can't fix itself because we built it to describe a planet where this can't happen. One of the National Weather Service guidance products came out an hour late, and then came out blank, just blank, no forecast. I have literally never seen that field empty. Here's the part that's keeping me at this microphone instead of in the parking lot staring at the sky like everyone else. If the wind doesn't come back, we are blind. Not just us, the Weather Service, everyone. We will have no ability to predict anything about the atmosphere because prediction is built entirely on motion, and there is no motion. Will be reduced to telling you what's happening by walking outside and looking the way people did 400 years ago, except the thing happening is something no one in 400,000 years has ever looked at. A scientist on a conference called 10 minutes ago, a smart woman from the lab, said something I can't stop hearing. She said, "We didn't break the model. The model's fine. We broke the planet." Then she laughed, and it wasn't a good laugh. Temperature is climbing now, and it's climbing differently in different places, and the pattern is the most frightening thing on my screen. Wind is how the planet shares heat. The equator gets baked, the poles freeze, and the whole churning machinery of the atmosphere exists to move that heat around, to even it out, to keep any one place from running away in either direction. Hurricanes, jet streams, the breeze off a lake in the afternoon. It's all the same system doing the same job, carrying heat from where there's too much to where there's too little. That system stopped at roughly 4 o'clock this morning. So now wherever the sun is hitting, the heat is just accumulating locally with nothing to carry it off. We're 8 hours into full daylight across half the planet, and the air over sunlit ground is heating up like a closed car, and there's no breeze to flush it, and the numbers are going up in a straight line instead of leveling off the way they always level off by mid-morning. It's 84 degrees here right now. That's warm for this hour, but not alarming. What's alarming is the slope. It's not curving towards an afternoon peak. It's just rising. And the desert stations out west, the ones already hot, they're past 100 before 9 in the morning and still climbing on that same merciless straight line. And the flip side, the places in darkness, the night, half of the earth, they're getting cold the same way. No wind to bring warmth in, heat just radiating up into space and not being replaced. The station in the dark over Central Asia dropped 14 degrees in 3 hours and is still falling. The planet is splitting into a hot half and a cold half, and the seam between them is wherever the sun's edge happens to be, and there's no longer anything moving across that seam to blend them. I keep my voice steady because that's the job, but I want to be honest with whoever's hearing this, and I'm scared in a way I don't have a procedure for. I have procedures for tornadoes, for floods, for ice storms that kill people. I do not have a procedure for the air deciding to stop. Maria just put a glass of water on my desk. The surface of it is perfectly flat and perfectly still. We got the first real reports of harm about 20 minutes ago, and they're not from now the heat, not yet. They're from the thing I should have seen coming and didn't. Combustion. Every fire needs air. A flame pulls in oxygen, burns it, and the hot exhaust rises and pulls fresh air in behind it. That's a draft. That's the wind a fire makes for itself. Now, the air around a fire isn't moving and it isn't being replenished fast enough, and fires are behaving wrong all over the place. Some are smothering themselves, choking out in their own exhaust, which sounds like good news until you realize what else burns by pulling air through it. Engines. A car engine, a generator, a furnace, a gas water heater. Every one of them runs on a controlled flame that needs airflow. People are reporting cars stalling, generators dying, and worse, the exhaust isn't going anywhere. Carbon monoxide, which is invisible and has no smell, and normally disperses into the moving air the instant it leaves a tailpipe, is now just pooling. In garages, in low spots, around idling vehicles, around the generators, people fired up the second their power flickered. There's a hospital 40 minutes south of here, reporting a cluster of CO poisonings in a single neighborhood. A whole street. People who started generators when the grid hiccuped and sat in their houses with the windows shut because it was getting hot, and the fumes had nowhere to go, and there was no breeze to carry it off. They didn't feel it coming because that's how it kills you. I need to say this clearly, and I need anyone hearing it to act on it. If you are running any engine, any generator, any flame, do it outside, far from where you are. And understand that outside does not mean what it meant yesterday. The air is not taking anything away from you anymore. Whatever you make, you keep. I want to repeat that on every loop of this recording. It's just past noon, and the reports coming in from major cities are the worst I've seen. And I think I understand why, and I hate that I understand it. Cities are heat engines. All that concrete and asphalt and glass soaks up the sun and holds it. Normally there's enough air movement, even in a dense downtown, to bleed some of that off the buildings, actually channel wind, create their own gusts. You felt it walking past a tall building on a still day and getting hit with a blast out of nowhere. That's the city breathing. The cities have stopped breathing and they are cooking from the inside. Phoenix is the one everyone's watching. The temperature downtown is something I won't even say out loud, because I don't fully believe the sensor, except that every sensor agrees. It's a number that doesn't belong on Earth's surface in a populated place. The hospitals there are past capacity, and they're telling people to get below ground, into basements, into anywhere. The heat hasn't reached yet, because there's no relief coming, no evening cool down. The night isn't going to bring a breeze, because there is no breeze. The heat that builds today does not leave tonight. It just waits for tomorrow's sun to add more. And the air quality. God, every city sits under its own emissions, and normally the wind scrubs it, pushes it out, brings clean air in from somewhere upstream. There is no upstream now. The exhaust from millions of cars and furnaces and factories that ran this morning is simply sitting on top of the cities that made it, getting thicker, and people are breathing it, and the ones with asthma and heart conditions are the first to fall. LA issued an order an hour ago telling people to stay indoors and seal their windows, and then 20 minutes later half-walked it back, because indoors with the windows sealed is its own death. If you've got anything running, and the people writing these orders are realizing in real time that every instinct they have is wrong now. Open the windows, you let the bad air in. Close them, you trap whatever you're producing. There's no right answer, because the answer was always, the wind will handle it, and the wind is gone. I keep thinking about how invisible it all was. The wind did so much for us, constantly, for free, forever, and we built our entire civilization on the assumption that it always would, and we never once thanked it or planned for its absence, because who plans for that? I didn't. Nobody did. The flag outside has not moved in 8 hours. A colleague forwarded me something from the oceanographers, and I almost don't want to share it because it widens this thing past anything I can hold in my head. But you should know, because it tells you how deep this goes. The ocean is driven by wind, too. The great surface currents. The ones that carry warm water from the tropics up toward the poles. The ones that keep Europe from being as cold as Canada. The ones' entire ecosystems and fisheries and climates depend on a huge part of what pushes them is wind dragging across the water's surface. Century after century, the same patient push. The push stopped this morning. The ocean has enormous inertia. It's not going to halt today or this week, but the surface is already going glassy worldwide. Sailors are reporting it. No swell, no chop, no whitecaps. Just an enormous, flat mirror, horizon to horizon, that they describe as the single most frightening thing they've ever seen. Grown men on container ships saying it makes their skin crawl because the sea is never, ever still, and now it is. And the same trap is forming on the water that's forming over the cities. The surface layer of the ocean gets its oxygen partly from waves mixing air down into it. No waves, no mixing. The fish that live near the surface, the whole shallow web of life, is going to start running out of breathable water from the top down, slowly. But it started. The oceanographer who sent this wrote one line under the data, and it's been sitting in my chest for an hour. She wrote, "The whole planet ran on stirring. We never noticed because it never stopped." That's it exactly. Everything we have: weather, climate, clean air, the ocean's life, the heat balance that lets the surface of this planet stay in the narrow band where people can exist. All of it ran on the air and water being stirred, constantly, by the wind. A free, endless, invisible stirring that started before there was anyone to see it, and that we assumed would outlast us. And it's just off, like a switch. And not one scientist on any call I've been on today can tell me why, or where it went, or whether it's coming back. And the not knowing is somehow worse than the heat and the silence and the flat Dead Sea. We don't even know what to be afraid of. We just know to be afraid. And I've been on calls all afternoon with people far above my level, federal scientists, an atmospheric physicist from a national lab, somebody from an agency I didn't catch the name of who mostly listened. And I asked the only question that matters, and I want to tell you what they said because their non-answer is the most honest thing I've heard all day. I asked, why did the wind stop? Not where, not how wide. Why? What force in the universe is holding back air that should be moving? Because the pressure differences are still there. I can see them on the map, big beautiful gradients that should be roaring with motion. The atmosphere wants to move, something is stopping it, and the physicist, sharp guy, careful, the kind who hedges everything, was quiet for a long time, and then he said, we can measure that the air isn't moving, yet we can't measure why. There's no force showing up that should be doing this. The momentum should be there, and it just isn't. It's like the air forgot it was allowed to move. Forgot it was allowed. He apologized for saying it that way, said it wasn't scientific, but he couldn't give me anything better, and neither could anyone else. And these are the smartest people we have. Somebody on the call floated theories. A change in some fundamental property of the atmosphere, something with the planet's rotation. Though the planet is clearly still rotating, the sun came up, something we don't have a word for. And every theory died the same way, with someone pointing out that the equations don't allow it, and someone else saying quietly that the equations also don't allow what's happening, so maybe the equations aren't the authority here anymore. That's the moment I felt the floor go out, when the physicists stopped trusting physics and a forecast as a promise that tomorrow follows from today, by rules we understand. I made that promise my whole career, and I sat on that call this afternoon and understood that I can't make it anymore. Not because I'm bad at my job, because the rules stopped being rules sometime around 4 o'clock this morning, and nobody asked us first. It's 3:30, exactly 12 hours. The thing about people is we adapt fast, and that's usually our saving grace. And right now it's getting some of us killed. I'm hearing how communities are responding, and it's a mix of the brilliant and the heartbreaking. Some people figured it out immediately. They've moved underground into basements and parking garages and storm shelters, the cool places, the places the heat hasn't reached and where the bad air upstairs settles less. Storm cellars, which out here every old farmhouse has for tornadoes, are suddenly the smartest real estate on the planet. The instinct that kept us alive in twisters is keeping us alive in this. But people are also doing the old things, the wind world things, and the wind world things don't work anymore. People opened their windows to cool off. There's no cooler air outside to come in, and now there's no barrier between them and the stagnant outdoor heat. People drove to get somewhere safer and sat in traffic with their engines running and their AC on, and the exhaust pooled around the cars. And there are roads I'm hearing about now where the problem isn't the crash, it's the stillness afterward. People lit grills, fired up camp stoves, started fires to feel like they were doing something, and the flames behaved wrong, and the fumes didn't leave. We are running on instincts calibrated for a planet that doesn't exist anymore. Every reflex we have about air assumes the air will help us. Carry the smoke off, bring the cool in, take the danger away, and the air has stopped doing us that favor, and our bodies don't know it yet, and our habits are even slower than our bodies. I keep telling people on the local lines, think of the air as still water now. Whatever you put in, it stays. Heat, smoke, fumes, it all just stays. You have to physically move yourself away from anything you produce, because nothing's going to move it for you. Saying it out loud like that, still water, makes it sound almost peaceful. It is not peaceful. It's the least peaceful thing I have ever lived inside of. The sun's going down, and I need to tell you what we're learning about the night, because the night is when I thought we'd get a break, and we are not getting a break. And understanding why is the closest thing to comprehension I've reached all day. Here's what I assumed. Sun goes down, heat stops coming in, things cool off. That part's even true. The temperature is dropping now that the sun's off us, but it's dropping wrong, and it's dropping in a way that's its own kind of danger. Normally, even at night, the air keeps moving. Warm air near the ground that picked up the day's heat rises. Cooler air sinks. Everything keeps turning over, and that turnover is gentle but constant. It mixes the cold upper air with the warmer surface air and keeps the temperature near the ground from doing anything too extreme too fast. No mixing now. So the air right at the surface, the air touching the cold ground that's now radiating its heat straight up into a clear sky with nothing to trap it, that air is getting cold fast and just sitting there. A layer of increasingly frigid air, pooling at the surface, pinned by the stillness, getting colder by the hour with nothing to stir warmth back into it. The deserts are the worst, the same way they were worst in the heat. Places that hit terrifying highs at noon are now plunging, the same straight line slope but downward, And the people who survive the day by getting low, getting underground, into the cool, those low places are exactly where the cold is going to pool tonight. The very strategy that saved them at 2 in the afternoon could freeze them by 2 in the morning. Yet, I had to get on the local line and tell people the rules changed again. During the day, get low and cool. Tonight, you may need to get up off the ground, get insulated, because the cold is coming, and it's coming to the low places first. The whole survival logic flips every 12 hours now, and people are exhausted and scared, and the information keeps reversing on them, and I can hear it in the voices on the phone, this fraying, this just tell me what to do and don't change it again. I can't promise not to change it again. That's the cruelest part of my job tonight. Everything I tell you is true until the planet does the next impossible thing, and then I have to call you back and tell you the opposite. And I need you to keep trusting me anyway. Outside the window, it's getting dark, and the stars are coming out hard and bright and sharp because the air is so still and clear, and it's beautiful, and I hate how beautiful it is. I went outside about an hour ago, into the dark, into the first night of the still world, and I have to describe it because I think it's the thing I'll remember longest. If I get to remember anything, there is no sound. I don't mean it's quiet. Quiet is a level of sound. This is the absence of the floor that all other sound sits on. I've stood in deserts and deep snow, in places people call silent, and they were never this. And there was always the wind, even faint, even imagined, that hush against the ears that tells your body the world is still running. That hush is gone, and without it the silence has edges, it has a shape. I could hear my own heartbeat, my own blood, the small wet sounds of being alive that you never hear because the world is usually louder than you are. I could hear a dog barking that had to be 2-3 miles off, perfectly clear, like it was in the next yard, because there was nothing between us to soften it. And then the dog stopped, and then the nothing closed back over the gap like water over a stone. The air was warm and thick and absolutely motionless against my skin, and it felt like standing in a held breath, like the whole sky was a lung that had filled up and stopped, waiting, and I was inside it. I'm not a poetic man. I deal in numbers. I'm telling you the numbers all day, and I'll keep telling you the numbers. But I stood out there in that silence, and I understood something the data can't show, which is that the wind was never just weather. It was company. It was the sound of the planet being alive around us, and the constant proof that the world was in motion, that things were happening, that tomorrow was being assembled out of today by forces bigger than us but familiar to us. And it's gone, and the silence it left isn't empty. It's full of waiting, and I don't know what it's waiting for, and I don't think it's waiting for anything. I think that's just my animal brain trying to make a predator out of a fact. But standing in it, I could not convince myself the stillness was indifferent. I came back inside, locked the door, which is absurd. You can't lock out the air. I locked it anyway. Something changed in the data about 40 minutes ago, and I've been staring at it trying to decide if it's hope or the opposite. And I've landed on the opposite, and here's why. The models started running again. Not the global motion models. Those are still producing garbage, still flagging errors, still describing a planet that can't exist. But the regional guidance, the local stuff, started spitting out forecasts again around 8 o'clock. Clean ones, confident ones. Numbers, trends, probabilities, all formatted the way they always are. And for about a minute I felt this surge of relief, because a working physics means the world makes sense again. Then I read the forecast. It's forecasting wind. Tomorrow, light winds from the south, 5 to 10 miles an hour, the model says. The day after, breezy, normal, completely ordinary spring forecast for Oklahoma. The kind I've issued 1,000 times. Except the wind is zero, and has been zero for 16 hours, and there is no physical reason for it to return, and the model has no information that says it will. The model is forecasting wind because the model was built assuming wind exists. And when you feed it this broken, still world, it doesn't say the wind has stopped. It can't say that. There's no setting for that. So it pattern matches to the closest normal day. It knows and tells you brightly that tomorrow will be breezy. It's not predicting. It's hallucinating the world it was born into. It's a machine that cannot conceive of the thing that's happening, so it's papering over the impossible with the familiar. And if you didn't know any better, you'd read that forecast and open your windows and wait for a breeze that is never coming. I issued a correction. I issued it in plain language, no jargon, because I needed people to understand. Do not trust the automated forecasts. The models are describing a planet we no longer live on. The wind is not returning tomorrow. I don't know if it's returning ever. Trust what you can feel and see, not what the screen tells you, because the screen is dreaming. I never thought I'd type those words as an official product. The screen is dreaming, but that's the truest forecast I've got tonight. I made contact with someone on the other side of the planet about half an hour ago, a forecaster in Australia named Tom. Ham radio, because the regular networks are getting spotty, and somebody had the good sense to set up radio backups this afternoon. And talking to him told me two things, one a little hopeful and one not. The hopeful thing, people are organizing. All over the world, the weather and emergency people are doing exactly what I'm doing, logging, warning, passing information by whatever means still works, keeping each other steady. We're a global network of people who spend our whole lives watching the sky, and we did not fall apart today. We got to work. There's something in that I'm choosing to hold on to, the not hopeful thing. I asked Tom how long it had been still where he was. Figured his number would be different from mine, given the timing, given how it switched on around the planet through the morning. He said it stopped over Australia at the same instant. It stopped everywhere. He'd been comparing notes across time zones all day. Everyone he'd reached, no matter where, put the stop at the same universal moment. Not a wave that traveled. A simultaneous, planet-wide stop. To the second. Everywhere at once. Weather doesn't do that. Nothing physical does that. A physical cause spreads at a physical speed. Something that happens everywhere at the exact same instant isn't moving through the atmosphere. It's acting on all of it at once. From outside, the normal order of cause and effect. And I don't have a framework for what that even means, and neither does Tom, and neither does anyone. He was quiet for a second over the static, and then he said, "Mate, the air didn't slow down, it was switched off. There's a difference, and I can't stop thinking about it." There is a difference. Slowing down is physics. Switching off is a decision. Or it's something that acts like one, and I keep landing back on the same place. The wind didn't fail. The wind stopped. And I don't know who or what is allowed to stop it. It's the next morning. I slept maybe 2 hours on the floor of the office. The sun's up again, and I have to report something that I understood intellectually yesterday, but I'm only now feeling in my body, and it's the thing that scares me most about where this goes. The heat is cumulative now. Yesterday's heat didn't leave. I told you the night cooled the surface, and it did, but only the thin layer right at the ground. Up higher, the heat that built up all day yesterday is still there, trapped, with no wind to carry it off and no mixing to spread it thin. And now the sun is back, adding to it. Today doesn't start from zero. Today starts from wherever yesterday left off. And this is the part the numbers made obvious, the second I let myself look at the long view. Every sunlit day adds heat. No day removes it, because removal was the wind's job, and the wind is gone. So the baseline climbs. Today will be hotter than yesterday. not because anything new happened, but because nothing carried yesterday away, and tomorrow hotter than today, and the day after. It's a staircase going up with no landing. I ran it forward roughly just to see, and I made myself stop because the numbers got unsurvivable faster than I wanted to believe. Not in months, in days. The places that were merely brutal yesterday become impossible within a week if this holds. And the only refuge is down underground, where the earth itself is cool and stays cool and doesn't care what the air is doing. I got on the line and I changed the guidance again, and this time I didn't soften it. I told people this is not a hot spell you wait out above ground. The above ground world is going to keep getting hotter every single day this continues. If you have access to anywhere below the surface, a basement, a cellar, a cave, a subway, a mine, a parking structure's lowest level, start thinking of that as where you live now, and the surface as somewhere you visit briefly when you must. I told them to do it calmly, to help their neighbors, to bring water down, because water you can survive without food a long time, but not without water and not in this heat. I tried to sound like a man with a plan instead of a man reading a thermometer that won't stop climbing. I don't know if I pulled it off. The flag outside has not moved in 28 hours. I've started checking it like a clock. We moved the office. The weather service building is good and solid, but it's above ground and it's full of glass and it's heating up despite the AC, which is straining because the condensers outside dump heat into air that won't take it away. So around mid-morning, the whole staff and I made a call, and we relocated our operation to the basement levels of a county building downtown that has a deep sub-basement and decent ventilation. We could rig the pool from below instead of above. I'm recording from there now. It's cooler, it's strange. We've got the radios, the satellite link, a couple of laptops on the data feeds that are still alive, and a string of work lights, and it feels like a bunker because it is one. And down here, away from the windows, away from the dead flag and the glass sky, I had a thought I want to put on the record while I can still think clearly. We are going to be fine for a while down here, the staff and I. That's not arrogance, that's just resources and luck and getting underground early. And being fine, even temporarily, gives you the room to think past your own survival. And what I keep thinking is, this is what the whole species is doing right now, in the smart places. Going down, going under. Treating the surface like the surface of a hostile planet, which it has become. While the part of the world we actually evolved on, the open air, the wind on your face, the weather, turns into something that will kill you. We spent our whole history reaching up. Tall buildings, flight, the open sky, as the symbol of freedom and possibility. And in one night the sky became the danger, and the dark, cool ground became the refuge. And I think if this holds, if the wind never comes back, we become an underground species, blinking and pale, telling our kids about a thing called wind the way we tell kids about dinosaurs. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm choosing not to think that's going to happen. But I'd be lying if I said the thought hasn't moved into the bunker with us and sat down in the corner and made itself at home. Maria's got the data feed up. Temperature's still climbing on that straight line. Hour 29. No wind. We got something this afternoon that's either an explanation or a coincidence dressed as one, and I'll give it to you exactly as it came, with all the caveats, because you deserve the real reasoning and not a clean story. A physicist on the federal called different one, an atmospheric dynamics specialist, had been digging into the actual mechanism of how air molecules move down at the smallest scale. And she came back with something that made the whole call go silent. She said, the air molecules are still moving, individually. They're still bouncing around, vibrating, carrying heat, doing everything molecules do. the temperature proves that heat is just molecular motion, and we've got plenty of heat. So the molecules are absolutely in motion. What stopped is the coordinated motion, the bulk flow, the thing where trillions of molecules all drift the same direction together, and we call it wind. The little chaotic motion is fine. The big organized motion is gone. And she said the only way she could describe it as a metaphor, and she stressed it was only a metaphor, was that it's like the air has lost the ability to agree on a direction. Each molecule still does its own thing, but they've stopped doing it together. The cooperation that turns random jitter into wind, that's what switched off. Then somebody asked her the obvious question, what could do that? What makes molecules stop cooperating across an entire planet at the same instant? And she said, I don't know. Nothing in our physics removes only the bulk motion and leaves the thermal motion intact. And they're the same molecules. You can't selectively switch off one and not the other. Except something did. You can't, except something didn't. That's where we are. That's the whole frontier of human understanding as of this afternoon. The smartest people alive have narrowed it down to a phenomenon that our physics says is impossible, that is nonetheless happening, that acts on the entire planet simultaneously, that leaves heat alone but kills flow, and that we cannot name, cannot explain, cannot predict, and cannot fight. I asked her, at the end. She thought it would reverse. She was quiet a long time. She said whatever decided this could decide the other way. I just don't know if it decides things at all, or if decide is even the right word. And I've been a scientist for 30 years, and I have never been this afraid of my own vocabulary. And I want to spend a minute on the things that are still working, because I've given you a lot of collapse and not enough of the other thing, and the other thing is real too. People are being good to each other. That's the report from everywhere, threaded through all the bad news. Neighbors are pulling neighbors underground, and people with cellars are taking in people without. Somebody in our building organized a water relay from the lower levels, hand to hand, no fuss. The radio network Tom and I are part of has tripled in a day. Hams all over the planet, keeping the information flowing when everything fancier fails, talking each other through the night, sharing what works. The cool places are filling up not with panic, but with a kind of grim, practical cooperation. The same thing I've seen after every tornado and flood of my career. The way disaster, for all its horror, keeps reminding us that the instinct to help is at least as deep as the instinct to survive, and the planet, for all that it's doing something terrible, isn't doing it cruelly. There's no malice in it that I can find. It's just physics, or the absence of physics, indifferent and enormous. And there's a strange comfort in that we're not being punished, we're just caught inside something that doesn't know we're here. I keep coming back to the wind itself. I spent 19 years measuring it, predicting it, respecting it, and I never once loved it, and now that it's gone, I understand it was the most generous thing in my life, and I never said so. It carried our smoke away and our heat away and brought us cool evenings and the smell of rain coming and the sound that told us the world was alive. If it comes back when it comes back, I'm going to stand in it and not move for an hour. That's my plan. That's the whole plan. Stand in the wind and be grateful. Hour 31. Somebody on the radio asked me tonight to do my job, to give a forecast, a real one, and I almost laughed because the models are dreaming and the physics is broken, and forecasting is the one thing I genuinely can't do anymore. And then I thought about it, and I realized there's exactly one forecast I can make with total confidence, and I gave it to them, and I'll give it to you. Tomorrow, the wind will not blow. The sun will rise on a still planet, and wherever it shines, the heat will build higher than today, because today's heat never left. The day half of the earth will keep getting hotter, and the night half colder, and the seam between them will hold no breeze. The sea will be a mirror, the smoke will sit where it's made, the smart will stay low, and the careful will stay alive, and the air will not move. That's my forecast. It's the surest one I've ever issued, and the reason it's sure is the reason it's terrible. Nothing is changing, because the thing that changes everything has stopped. But here's the rest of it, and this is the part I want. Said in my own voice while my voice still works. We are still here, 30-some hours into the impossible, and the radio network is bigger than it was, and the cellars are full of people taking care of each other, and the data is still being logged by people who refuse to stop logging it, and somewhere a physicist is still chipping at a problem that her own field says can't exist. We have not gone quiet. We've gone underground, but we have not gone quiet. And as long as people are talking, as long as Tom's on the radio in Australia, and Reyes is on the line in the regional center, and I'm down here in this basement reading a thermometer to anyone who'll listen. The one thing that hasn't stopped moving is us. The information's still moving. The help is still moving. The voices are still moving through the dead air. The molecules gave up on. We're the motion now, for as long as we can be. The grid started failing about an hour ago, and I knew it was coming, and it still hit hard. Power plants need cooling. Almost all of them dump waste heat into the air or into water, and the air won't take it now, and the water's going still and warm. So plant after plant is shutting down to keep from cooking itself or failing outright. The grid's been browning out in waves all evening, and now whole regions are going dark. We're on generators down here, vented carefully, obsessively, because I will not lose my people to the thing I've been warning everyone else about all day. But generators need fuel, and fuel is finite, and the things that make more fuel need power, and the whole interlocking machine of modern life assumed, at every single layer, that the air would carry heat away for free, and never charged us for that. Now the bills come due all at once. So I have to prepare you for the likelihood that the screens go dark, that the feeds I'm reading stop updating, that the official voices, the ones with the supercomputers and the satellites, go quiet, not because they stopped caring, but because the lights went out. And when that happens, here's what I need you to hold on to. The radios still work, the simple ones. A battery, an antenna, a human voice. The thing that's keeping us connected as the fancy systems fail is the oldest, dumbest, most reliable technology. We have somebody talking, somebody listening, across the dead. Still air that won't carry a breeze, but carries a signal just fine. Find a radio, find the local emergency frequencies, find the ham operators, because we are not going anywhere. When the screens die, we'll still be on the air, hand cranking generators and reading thermometers by flashlight and telling you what's true. The wind stopped. The lights are going, but the voices are staying. Write that down somewhere in case you need to believe it later. The voices are staying. Hour 33, the flag has not moved. Wait, I need to hold on. Something just came in and I want to read it carefully before I say anything, because I've spent 2 days telling people not to hope at the wrong things. One of the mesonet stations out west, the one near Altus, the one I calibrated myself. About 4 minutes ago it registered a wind reading. Not 0. 0.3 miles an hour, then 0.2, then back to 0, a flicker. One station. Could be a fault, and could be thermal expansion, twitching the cups. Could be a bug, a bird, 1,000 boring things, and I have spent my whole career being the man who says it's probably the boring thing. But Tulsa just flickered too. 0.1, then 0. And a station down near the Gulf. I'm watching the board, and I'm not going to tell you it's the wind coming back, because I don't know that. And I will not be the screen that dreams. These are flickers, tenths of a mile an hour. They could be nothing. They could be the air twitching in its sleep and going still again forever. But they're happening at more than one station now, and they're not synchronized this time, not the eerie all at once of the stop. They're scattered, random, local. They look, and I'm choosing this word with everything I've got, they look natural. They look like the messy, uncoordinated, real way that air actually moves when it's deciding to move. Maria's standing behind me, and neither of us is breathing. Another flicker. 2 stations at once, different directions. I don't know what this is, and I want to be so careful. I have been wrong before, and I'll be wrong again. And the cruelest thing I could do right now is promise you something the planet then takes back, so I won't promise. Yet, I'll just tell you what's true the way I have the whole time. The board, which has read 0 across the world for 33 hours, is flickering. Hour 33, and something is moving. This is Daniel Vance, or it's hour 34. I'm going to keep this short because I want to get back to the board. I'm not going to tell you that the wind is back. As I'm recording this, the readings are still mostly 0, still flickering. Points something here and there, gone again. It is not a forecast, it is not a promise. It might stop again in the next minute and never return. And if it does, I'll get back on this microphone and tell you that too, because that's the deal. That's always been the deal. But I'll tell you what I'm choosing to believe, and you can decide what to do with it. I think the air is remembering. I think whatever switched it off has, for reasons no one will ever explain to us, started to let it move again. The same messy, uncoordinated way it always did. The way that makes weather and carries heat and brings the cool evening and the smell of rain. I think the molecules are starting to agree on a direction again, here and there, in 2s and 3s, the way agreement always starts. And if I'm right, the world that's coming back isn't going to come back all at once or all the way or all at peace. We'll be dug out from underground and counting what we lost and changed forever by having spent 2 days inside a planet that stopped breathing. We will never again take the wind for granted. None of us. Not after this. I'm going to go watch the board now. If you're hearing this, find a radio, stay low. Take care of whoever's near you, and listen for us. We're staying on the air, and if you step outside and feel something move against your face, stand in it a minute. Just stand in it. This is Daniel Vance signing off for now. Norman, Oklahoma. Hour 34, the flag just moved.